Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. Now that my two obligatory informative videos are done for the day, it's time to talk about current events in the online fitness community. And Jeff Cavalier, aka Athlean-X, aka Curling-X, made a video discussing how to get big biceps. The one movement to give you big biceps, which was linked to me by a number of subscribers because they had some comments to make on it. And I'm not necessarily going to agree with everything that they said about it, by the way. So let me go ahead and put on my +5 hat of weaponsmithing, work on scaling up my crafting a little bit, and let's talk about this. And let's be realistic here. There are times when I'm critical of Jeff, and there are times when I say, hey, he's right. And I don't want people to think that I'm always going to be critical of Jeff, because he does say some things that are very smart, that are very educated, that are very knowledgeable of the human body. I don't think anyone is going to disagree with that point. My problem comes with, again, maybe the selling of useless products, right? Which he knows, if he talks about science, scientific studies have confirmed some of the products that he has for sale, meta-analysis have said they don't work, right? All the other experts who even pimped them years ago have stopped selling them because they know that the data says they don't work, and then it makes them look bad as evidence-based practitioners. Stuff like that. And then the fact that, again, he takes too much of a physical therapy approach to coaching and then calls himself a strength coach. And that's been the big point of contention. Now, you come to something like the biceps, and here's what I would say. If we want to talk just pure anecdote, I can talk about the fact that Jeff can't perform a bench press. He's weak on the bench press, gives some bad cues on the bench press, weak on squats, weak on all these big movements, and doesn't seem to know how to coach them, and that's a criticism a lot of people have, and he doesn't know how to program them. That's the problem with him as a strength coach. But if we want to talk about anecdotes like that, then, Jeff has big biceps relative to the rest of his body, right? I don't think anyone's going to say, oh, that guy doesn't know how to build biceps. Well, because he clearly does. Just like no person is going to look at Jeff and say he doesn't know how to get lean. I would never dare say that. That's one of the jokes. Curl-lean-X is one of the slang terms people throw out there for him, right? Or bro-lean-X, but curl-lean-X, because guy's lean, he's ripped, and he does have biceps. He might lack overall size and he might lack overall strength, but he sure as hell doesn't lack in his biceps. And of course, what does he point out? That he loves the cheat curl, but his favorite exercise is the chin up. Well, that makes a lot of sense. A guy who does have really good bicep development, even relative to the rest of his body, turns out his favorite exercise is the weighted chin up. Well, that's not really a surprise, is it? Because why? He's right. The weighted chin up, from a biomechanical perspective, you're not really going to find anything that more effectively works the biceps. If you're talking in terms of total load and stimulation put up on the bicep, you're not going to be able to equal that with any other exercise that I can think of, other than maybe some forms of pull-up, but it's a different line of pull. And it does work it a bit different. But people need to remember the bicep is not a complicated muscle. They start thinking in terms of, well, the bicep, you have all these different angles. It doesn't have all these different angles. That's the point. The bicep, in terms of exercises that load it in a way that can stimulate hypertrophy, it really only has two functions. And no, I don't mean the pronation and supination of the wrist, because that can't really be done under a load in a way that causes a training effect. It's going to cause hypertrophy. But it is flexion of the elbow, flexion of the shoulder, right? The weighted chin up does both. The weighted chin up does both, and it even can stretch the bicep. It puts a stretch on the bicep, have tremendous load at the stretch position, tremendous load at the contracted position, and it actually works both functions, because that is one of the functions. You need to remember that there's one of the heads of your bicep that is activated out of the two insertions up here by that movement. So if you're only moving the elbow, you can't recruit 100% of the muscle fibers available in the muscle that way. You do need that extra movement to hit every possible fiber and get all the motor units. Well, the weighted chin-up does both. It also does so in a way, as he pointed out, it puts more load on the bicep than even a cheat curl. And he didn't necessarily discuss it from the eccentric perspective, but I will. He's right. When you talk about the fact that even the cheat curl, you get an eccentric loading on it because of the extra load that the bicep wouldn't be able to lift normally, don't you get that on a chin-up also? In other words, if you're chinning 250 total pounds of weight, your plates plus your body weight, there's no way you're ever going to subject your biceps to 250 pounds of load. And now, granted, the lats are taking a large chunk of it, but it does have to connect through the bicep. The bicep is oftentimes the weak link in that kinetic chain. And so it gets hit pretty damn hard even on that eccentric rep. So you start talking about total tension, and that's where he mentioned progressive overload. Now, I've given him flack in the past for not talking about progressive overload. Alec and Curie did also. Well, he did specifically mention progressive overload there. So again, I'm going to give credit where credit is due. And he's right. You talk about a muscle or an exercise that will give the bicep large amounts of progressive overload. The weighted chin up, it's king. It's king. And you guys know, hey, it's one of my favorite exercises. Look, I do it all the time. I'm a big fan. And I mean, let's go ahead and look at the reality of it. We're going to get into the problems where I think he got a little too nuanced with it. And I think, again, this is where Jeff fails. He goes into too many details and overcomplicates really simple exercises. But, I mean, realistically, I mean, I'm stronger at him at everything. But maybe this exercise is his favorite exercise. Jeff is probably as strong as I am at it. Right? In terms of what, our 3 or 4 rep max, if you think about total weight being moved, body weight plus plates, they're probably pretty comparable. So he's as strong as me, and I'm a strength athlete. We're in the same age bracket, and I'm a strength athlete. I care about strength, and he's as strong as me on this lift. Well, it's no wonder then that he's got well-developed biceps. I mean, he's, again, progressive overload. Progressive tension is one of the primary drivers of hypertrophy. Well, he's really strong at this exercise. It's his favorite exercise. He does it all the time. And accordingly, he's got big biceps. I don't think that's a coincidence. I mean, anecdotally speaking, it makes sense. I will even say that I think he got a little too nuanced with it. And that was some of the criticism I've already seen of the videos that people are saying, look, it's not that complicated. You don't need to convolute the chin up like that. And I would agree with them because things like continual tension aren't believed even by the science experts to be a factor in hypertrophy. So I think he got a little too nuanced into the continual tension, but he did throw in one piece of information there that I thought was really good, right? This is where I will always give Jeff credit. He might spout a lot of silly bullshit and overcomplicate exercises. But when it comes to a physical therapy perspective, he does really hit a lot of these points right. And he did get this right on the chin up. Again, no surprise, his best exercise. I guarantee you he's figured out everything to perfect this exercise. He's a physical therapist by trade. But what he pointed out was the way that you grip it. You know, that you want to get just a little bit of that elbow bend in there so that you can grip it, but not the fingertips. So again, you guys need to work on your grip strength. Just that little bit of elbow bend so that you're not pulled under like this, so that you're under this way, right? And the reason for it is that you don't get that same tension in the forearms, because he is right. If you do too much over like this, and the same thing on your pull-ups, particularly pull-ups, you'll start getting that pain right through here, right? You'll get that pain right through here, and he's right about that. So he's dead on. I can't disagree with that point because I know from personal experience that he is absolutely right. So yeah, if you want to avoid that forearm pain, you do need that little bit of bend in the wrist, just like you would do on a curl, right? You do the same thing on a barbell curl, right? Big heavy cheek curl. If you start doing a wrist curl on it, your elbows start to hurt. You start to get this forearm pain down through here. So to avoid that, you always let the wrist trail behind. Well, you have to do the same thing up there. But in order to do that and not let it slip into those fingertips, you really have to develop a little bit of grip strength. So some extra grip work will go a long way in doing that. Where I think he got a little too nuanced and is some people would argue maybe the argument about the wider grip. Maybe. I do understand his point there, but again, there's a difference between talking about the loaded carry position down here versus that contracted position up here. I don't know if I fully buy that, but I will add the caveat is that he does have really good bicep development, and he does do that wider grip personally. So I won't necessarily disagree with that point. I think it's probably a largely irrelevant point, but I will concede that he could be right. He could be right. I don't think it's going to hurt anyone's progress to do it that way, to have the slightly wider grip with the elbows in a little bit more the way that he showed. I don't think that's going to hurt your progress. I don't think anyone's going to be harmed by that advice. His only other thing, though, is that I think he made it too big of a deal about the unloading the bicep at the top. I really don't think that's that big of a deal. Try to get your chin up over the bar. And again, that comes down to the fact that taking tension off of a muscle, no amount of data or science, none of the experts actually think that actually hurts muscle growth in any ways. That's, again, he's falling back into bodybuilder bro myth, not science, when we start talking about continual tension. So that's the point I would say. I think he got too nuanced to the point of where we're getting to points of irrelevancy. However, his main points hold as far as the way you need to grip it, as far as that hand grip, he's dead on accurate. The fact that this exercise does put more tension and more work on the bicep than probably any other exercise that you can think up, he's absolutely right. Biomechanically, he's right. He's absolutely right. Now, how you're going to program it is, of course, is another issue. You've got to deal with fatigue management and all of those things. But at the end of the day, I'm going to have to agree with Jeff on the overall premise of this video. I'm going to have to agree with him. Even if a couple of the minor details I think are largely irrelevant, the main point is that, yes, he is absolutely right. Biomechanically, he's right. In his own evidence, in his own body, he's right. His strongest lift happens to correlate with his most well-developed muscle group. And you go look at all of his big exercises, the ones he's weakest at, like bench press, he's really weak at bench press. He has no chest. And even though he does all these little silly exercises, they don't work because we know that, quite frankly, the weighted dip and the weighted bench press are going to build your chest faster than any sort of cable fly ever will. So again, it makes sense. He is actually direct proof. If you want anecdotal evidence to back the biomechanics that was presented here, Jeff is actually a good example of that. Really, really strong at the chin-up, disproportionately strong on the chin-up relative to his other big lifts. He has big biceps relative to the rest of his body. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.